Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Bermuda Championship Initial Research Show. Hope your weekend was a successful one. Mine was not, and it should have been, but I will get into that here in a little bit later in the intro. But Rory deserved to win, played very, very well. He was the answer to the quote trivia question, I suppose, from last week. I mentioned that there was only one player who had won at multiple venues of the comparison courses, the ones that I thought would play very similar to Congaree. That answer was Rory. I was not going to bet him at 6.5 to 1, but if you did, congratulations. I hope you put quite a bit of money on it. If you did, let me know. Reach out via social media or in the chat or in the comments. Would love to shout you out in the show tomorrow. But just too low of price for me. DFS was a mixed bag. Was nowhere near Rom. He played extremely well. That hurt me. Fleetwood decided not to play Thursday and then played for 3 days very, very well. Sam Burns was mediocre. Brendan Steele played very well, but not well enough. That was also a top 10 wager that I just missed out on. So that can be the summary of my weekend. Close, but not crossing the finish line. But again, hopefully you had a good weekend. We have a lot to cover tonight, so I don't want to ramble on too much. Let's get into the show. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler, a much better DFS player. Look, there's a lot of great tools, a lot of great research out there. I simply believe that Fantasy National is the best. It's going to provide you the most bang for your buck. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media. It's Twitter and Instagram, where I will be posting research throughout the week for the tournament at hand, this week being the Bermuda. The link to Twitch is there, and I had a show on Friday morning going on about the showdown slate for Friday afternoon for the CJ Cup at Congaree. Had a little bit of participation there. Turns out I hit, I think, the optimal lineup for the Friday afternoon slate. Did I play that lineup? Of course not. I didn't play any contests, to be honest with you, on Showdown. But I did hit what I think is the optimal lineup for that Showdown slate. Easy enough for me to say. If you want to see it for yourself, that video is out on Twitch, so go give me a follow there. I am live in the mornings, 10:30 a.m. Eastern over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday mornings. I do not stream Wednesday mornings, as that is the day for me to get my own DFS wagers and all that taken care of, plus prep for the Wednesday night show. But every other weekday morning, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I am live on Twitch, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Tomorrow I will be doing some winter research around Port Royal, the players who have won here, what they have been traditionally good at, what was their form leading in, all that good stuff. And then finally, there is a link to my Discord server. If you want to reach out to me in that regard, you can get a hold of me there. And then finally, for the entirety of the intro, we're live, chat is open. Want to hear from you. How was your weekend? Did you play a lot of Rory? Did you play a lot of Rory and Rom together? That was a very successful combination. How much KH Lee did you have? I was nowhere near Kurt Kitayama. Were you? Again, let me know how your week and weekend went. What are you looking forward to for this week at the Bermuda? How much do you know of Port Royal? Or at least how much do you know before coming into this show? So I would be interested to hear from you all in that regard. So jump in, chat. Would love the interaction. But let's do what we're here for. Let's do our initial research for the 2023 Bermuda Championship. And we start with a little different way tonight. There is no GCSA tournament fact sheet. There probably won't be this week since the tournament is international, or at least not on U.S. continental soil. So we start at Pro Visualizer. And you see how there are a lot of systems going in my background. So Google Earth or Cesium, whatever Pro Visualizer uses, isn't loading the topographical stuff here. But you see the whole yardages for Port Royal. We are in Bermuda for the Bermuda Championship. This course is very, very short. It is listed at 6,800 on Pro Visualizer. I don't know if it's that short per se, but it is definitely under 7,200 yards. Very easily under 7,100. I think it plays to around 7,000 for the Bermuda Championship. So we are going to be looking at short course metrics this week. And you can see some of the course layout here. 3 par 5, so it's a par 71. 4 par 3s, your 11 par 3 or par 4s, excuse me, and 3 par 5s. A decent mix here. Dogleg lefts, rights, leans, and whatnot. And then the elevation profile, not much throughout the course. We'll see some images here in a little bit. The course is right on the coastline, so that is going to have a distinct effect as well. So like I said, we have a lot to get into. Let's get into it. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to go through the yardage chart here at Pro Visualizer, get a feel for how many bunkers, water in play. Like I said, this course is on the edge of the island, runs parallel with the ocean, but the ocean doesn't come into play much at all. So first hole here, one of the longer holes, to be honest, at Port Royal, 435 yard par 4, a few bunkers, but another key we're wanting to look at is see how much water is in play. So one hole, one water, or one hole with water in play. But simple dogleg right, par 4. Par 3, or excuse me, the par 5 second, again, water not into play for the pros. No comment, meaning that it is absolutely in play for me. But par 5, Pro Visualizer has everything listed as a 3-shotter, but notice here it gives you a 255 yard drive. I'm going to tell you right now, depending on wind, but everything in a vacuum, pros are going to be able to carry this bunker here and set up an attack on a green in 2. So this by no means is a 300 yard approach second shot or a forced layup, depending on the wind, and that's a big factor here at Bermuda or at Port Royal. Depending on wind, the pros will be able to carry this and set up an attackable par 5. So no water in play here. Hole 3, straight away par 3, water in play. If memory serves, this green has a false front, and everything that is short will feed down to the water, the penalty area, making short pins pretty difficult. This green is large, but front pin placements are an issue or have their challenges. So 3 holes, 2 with water in play. Hole 4, straight away par 4, dogleg right to another big green here, 460 yard par 4, dogleg right. Hole 5, converse, or the inverse I should say, dogleg left. Again, massive green, but no water in play. Hey James, thanks for jumping in on Twitch chat. Yes, I mentioned that in the intro that the showdown lineup that you were there for the show on Friday morning turned out to be very, very good. Did I play it? No, absolutely not, because I'm an idiot. I generally don't play a lot of showdown lineups anyway. But for those who weren't there for the show or are not aware of my Twitch channel, go find it. The receipt is there. I'm not blowing smoke. I did come up with, I think was the optimal lineup. If not, it was really darn close to the optimal lineup for that Friday PM slate on DraftKings. You won that $33 contest. Congratulations. Congratulations. That is awesome. That's amazing. I'm glad to hear it. And I'm glad I could contribute in any way to help you win that. But coming back here to Port Royal, hole 5, no water in play, simple dogleg left. Pretty short hole here. Hole 6, straightaway par 4. In the right circumstances, this might be semi-drivable. I say right circumstances, wind is a factor, but most players will probably opt to hit an iron here, lay up to an elevated green that is protected by bunkers in front and a massive false front. Hole 7, sweeping dogleg left, par 5. If there is a true 3-shot par 5 on this course, it is this one, only because of the fairway bunkers here that will catch any tee shot that goes awry. However, if you have a long hitter that carries these bunkers, this becomes essentially a par 4. So again, depending on weather, this hole plays pretty tough or extremely easy. But we are through 7 holes here, only 2 with water in play. Hole 8, again, a fairly long straightaway par 3, no water in play. Hole 9, again, straightaway par 4. These greens are massive, and a lot of the protection of this course is in bunkers and contouring around the green, since there hasn't been a lot of water in play yet. So there's the front 9. We move to the back 9. Starts off with a very, very short but not drivable par 4. Measures 348 on Pro Visualizer. Again, all of it being in a layup design. Even the biggest of hitters will have trouble getting to this green, so almost everybody lays up here to set themselves up with a wedge. Hole 11, again, long, I say long, it's only 442 yards, but that is long for Port Royal. Straightaway par 4, no water in play. Hole 12, fairly innocuous par 4. 13, long par 3. This hole is tough. But again, no water in play, just a long par 3. 14, again, no water in play, just a dogleg left, avoid the bunker type par 4. 15, again, still no water in play on this back 9 yet. 405 yard par 4, fairly innocuous, but these greens are pretty massive. Hole 16, this is where you get the first bit of water in play on the back 9. This is running up against the ocean, par 3 with the cliffside to the left. So 3 holes with water in play. Hole 17, the 4th hole with water in play. Now, par 5, water on the left. Probably not in play unless the wind is into and maybe off the right, like coming this way. Whoops. I didn't realize it was going to do that, but coming this way. but technically still a hole with water in play. So there's 4 holes with water in play. This is the last par 5 on the course, and then the finishing 18th hole. Again, water really not in play. I don't, honestly, as much as I make fun of myself playing golf, I don't think it's in play with even with me, because I'm aiming over here anyway. So I'm not going to count this as a hole with water in play, but a straightaway par 4 to end the course or finish off the course. So 4 holes with water in play here at Port Royal. Very, very short course. You saw that hopefully in the length of these second shots here, and we'll analyze that here in a little bit. But before we go into Fantasy National, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Pro Visualizer takes a lot off of my system. I went ahead and brought up Windfinder, and this is why. Thursday looks very, very calm, looks great, but a little bit of weather and rain in the forecast, at least 96 hours out. But then look at Friday and Saturday. Lots of awful weather. Sustained winds, 20 plus, gusts nearing 30, rain all in the forecast all day for both days. This was the case last year at the Bermuda when Lucas Herbert won. Lucas Herbert made it no secret in his post-win news conference that he loves that kind of weather, thrives in awful conditions. Gusts were up in the 40-mile-an-hour range last year for the final round at the Bermuda. So weather is absolutely a factor. It generally is here at Port Royal. So that's another factor we're going to have to be looking into this week for the Bermuda Championship. So I wanted to make sure I brought that up for you all as we prepare to go into Fantasy National. So here at the Bermuda Championship this week, a fairly weak field. Not a lot of players that played in the CJ Cup are making the trip over to Bermuda. Denny McCarthy is one such player. Alex Smalley, Ben On, that's 3. I believe I counted about 5 or 6. S.H. Kim is another, but a very, very weak field, which is to be expected. You've got a lot of travel from stateside over to the Zozo and then back for the CJ Cup. So a lot of the bigger names take this tournament off, as is tradition. So nothing new here. You can see I have sorted this on the top strokes gained total players since July 1st, which is the beginning of the John Deere. But before we go too much further, normally we go into the course breakdown. I'm going to go into Microsoft Excel very, very quickly. And what this is, I have not done it for the other tournaments that have been fairly new. I didn't do it last week for Congaree, especially since it has been seen. Didn't do it for the Zozo. Very well could have. But what I have done here, I have brought in those estimated proximity or approach shots from Pro Visualizer over here to Microsoft Excel and attempted to recreate the estimated or the approach shot distribution chart from Fantasy National. Let's see. Yep, that is going to be a little tough to see. Hopefully, okay, good. There's nothing in the 175 to 200, so don't worry. My big head is not blocking anything here. But again, this is all per Pro Visualizer. You have one hole with an approach shot from 75 to 100. You have 6 from 100 to 125. 3 from 125 to 150, 1 from 150 to 175, and then I categorized all 3 par 5s as attackable. Some of them might not be. depending on the wind, as we saw from Windfinder, there looks to be a lot of precipitation, a lot of wind in the forecast, so depends on how it affects the course, whether a hole plays into, downwind, crosswind, all that. But as of right now, I have listed all 3 par 5s as attackable in 2, hence the 200 pluses. Any par 5 that does not get attacked in 2, you can move a number more than likely to the 75 to 100. Could be the 100 to 125, depends on what the individual player prefers as his approach. But the overwhelming story, or the overwhelming thought you need to have as you begin your research this week, look at the propensity of short approaches. 100 to 125. You have a few from 125 to 150, but this range here, even the 75 to 100, for these par 5s that might not be attackable. Focus a lot of your attention this week, especially at the start, to the players that are good with wedges. Think of your Zach Johnson types. These guys that don't need to hit it far, but they are always dialed in with the short clubs in their hand. So I wanted to make sure I brought this over from Pro Visualizer, and again, all of it is from Pro Visualizer, so if a guy hits a 300-yard drive, then a lot of these are even going to move further left, because a lot of Pro Visualizer had forced layups of 260, 270, and if a player can carry 310, which isn't out of the realm of possibility, then they take out the fairway bunkers, essentially. But a lot of short approaches. So begin your research this week around these wedge distances and who is good from those ranges. All right, so I'm going to close that out. I wanted to, again, make sure I emphasize that for you all. There is the comparison course. We're not going to go to that quite yet. So let me bring up Fantasy National again. Let's go to Fantasy National's course breakdown and look at the scorecard. First thing I like to do is look at the 9th and 10th most difficult holes. If par is right around there, then you know it's average. Well, I just happened to see that the 10th most difficult hole is right at par. So that plays to a little bit on the more difficult end of average. There are scoring opportunities, absolutely. The very short par 5 7th, only 517 yards on the scorecard, plays to a half a shot under par, yields an eagle about 4% of the time. That is a very high, or a high rate. I can't say very high. It's a high rate. It's an absolute birdie hole. If you are getting a par on that hole, you are losing strokes to the field. Same with the 17th. Only 507 yard par 5. Plays to 35 hundredths under par. Again, an eagle rate above 3.5%. That's still high, but it is an absolute birdie hole. Again, the defense of this course is the wind. So Friday looks like it could be prime scoring conditions, or at least 96 hours out, 4 days away, and we know weather is absolutely never going to change. We can always count on it. It won't change at all. But the rest of the course can play difficult. You've got this very, very brutal stretch on the back nine. 4 straight holes where it'll play to a 10th over par to 3/10 over par. It's just a demandingly difficult stretch of holes here. Conversely, you've got the front side that has the 2 par 5s that are extremely attackable. 3/10 or almost 3/10 under par, almost 2/10 under par. Again, the easiest half shot under par. So there are scoring opportunities to be had, but there are some pretty difficult holes here too. That's why it does play to average. And it'll play almost close to average. You got a half a shot here, but you got 3/10, almost 2/10, almost a quarter of a shot. So right at average. Front nine, absolutely more gettable than the back nine here. Strokes gained by hole by par. You see for the top 10 finishers, very, very evenly distributed. 3s, 4s, and 5s, all within roughly 2/10 of each other. Excuse me, 2/100ths of each other. 0.15, 0.17 is the gap. 2/100ths of each other. They're very, very even. Top 5s, par 5s, start to maybe pull ahead of the other two in terms of strokes gained. This is where the big, massive jump comes in. Your winners have demolished these par 4s. Demolished these par 4s. Almost, or it's, I say almost, it's a little more than a quarter of a shot per round on the par 4s. Very, very important here for the winners. So we're going to be scrutinizing these par 4s. The par 3s and the 5s have been fairly even throughout. Now, the top 5s, the par 5s jumped a little bit, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still fairly close. Just a little bit over 2/10 to right at 0.186, 0.187. So very, very close. But for the winners, it's all in the par 4s. We'll move back to the top 10s. You can see there is no pro shot distribution chart, so that's why I made what I did in Excel. Hole composition. Actually, apologies, before I get there, you'll see that we don't have any strokes gained by shot type chart here. No off the tee, approach, around the green, putting, because this is not on continental U.S. soil. Again, we do not have shot link data. So it's going to be very imperative that we look at something like the Zozo, compare last year's mixed condition model, see how I did there, because we don't have an idea on approach versus around the green versus off the tee versus putting. Although I think there will be a couple of things that will reveal what is most important. I've shown you the wedges already, so think about that as we move forward tonight and through the week. Now we'll move to the hole composition. The 4 par 3s, pretty evenly distributed. You've got 2 that are 225 plus, one that's pretty darn long, and then one very, very short par 3. So if we look and see about this 200 to 225 par 3, it is sitting at 213. Pretty tough to come up all the way into the 225 plus. The other two measure at 235. Seems like it'll be a little difficult to come down into this range. So these par 3s are pretty well stagnated right in their buckets. So we'll see if the 225 plus perhaps has more of an influence than the other two. But par 3s just seemingly as important as the par 5s based on the charts up here. Where we're going to put a lot of our focus this week is in these par 4s. And you see there are 6 from 350 to 400 and 4 more from 400 to 450. So a very, very short collection of par 4s here. You only have one that's 450 to 500. Very, very short collection of par 4s. We'll see how much, if any, those mandate some extra scrutiny or putting some extra percentage in the mixed condition model on Wednesday night. And then finally, the par 5s, you have 2 short par 5s, 500 to 550, and then 1 from 550 to 600. Scoring distribution, again, talking about the difficulty of the course, you have birdies at almost 21%, bogeys at 15%, and doubles at 2%. So there are more birdies than bogeys and doubles, but there are a few doubles here. You can see the bar. So there are high numbers to be had, especially on that back nine, that very difficult 4-hole stretch here. but this is saying that it will play more to the easier side of average than the difficult end. I don't know. I when I think of Port Royal and the Bermuda, a lot of it, so much of it depends on the wind. I generally think of it as average to maybe even a little bit difficult, just because the wind plays such a factor. But there are the scores for you. I'm not going to be doing anything with easy or difficult. I just think it is pretty firmly entrenched in the average category, a little more to the difficult end, but we're definitely going to be looking at short courses. The historic cut line, the 3 years that the Bermuda Championship has been played, has been, again, right around the average mark. -1 its first year in 2020. Then it jumped to +2. Last year was +1. Again, all of that signifies that it's in the average range, but this is why I say it's a little bit more difficult, as +1 to +2 generally is right around average for the PGA Tour. So it's a little bit on the more difficult end, at least in terms of cut line. We move to driving accuracy. And a lot of this has to do with the wind, and there's a lot of tilt in these fairways and the way the course is shaped. Again, being on the coastline with the ocean, a lot of tilt, a lot of undulation. Driving accuracy, very, very little here. 53% to the PGA Tour average of 62%. Green and regulation percentage, even though these greens are pretty big, slightly less than tour average. Again, a lot of that due to the wind. However, players are more successful scrambling here than the average tour event. And then there are slightly, and I mean slightly, let's see, 56.8, 55.6, so slightly more 3 putts per round here. But again, we'll see if driving accuracy tends to be something we need to look at, green and regulation percentage, etc., etc. But there's a look at Port Royal from a scorecard and a graphical view here at Fantasy National. Because there is no tournament fact sheet from the GCSAA, I'm going to jump to the historic conditions. And we see that last year the tournament played to 2 rounds of easy and 2 rounds of difficult. Again, the aforementioned monsoon that was the 4th round, the 4th and final round last year, just awful conditions. Anytime the wind picks up, the course is going to play difficult. Windy, difficult. Now in 2021 they had a couple of windy rounds that were average, but anytime that the wind has laid down, any at all, even to a moderate extent, it has been easy to average. So if you have a windy day, it's not a guarantee to be more difficult, but it's certainly the main course's defense. If you don't have wind, the course is going to be very easy. Moderate or easy scoring, moderate wind. Average scoring, moderate wind. Easy scoring, calm and moderate winds. So if there is no wind, the course is going to be very, very easy. But the main thing I wanted to look at, we're at the Bermuda Championship. It makes sense. We're on Bermuda greens. The greens have always been slow. I can't say always. They've been average in 2021, but they're generally kept slow. Like the Corrales, like Puerto Rico, these other tournaments that are held in tropical venues, wind generally plays havoc there. So they have to keep those greens slow, or else it would be unplayable. So we're going to be looking at very, very slow Bermuda greens this week. I'm going to tend to lean Velcro. We might look at average as well, but slow Bermuda greens is what we're looking at, and of course, all short every single round here. So now we'll come back to the strokes gained page view here at Fantasy National. First thing I like to do, again, now that we know that we are on Bermuda greens, we are definitely going to be looking at Velcro. I will put in average, probably, let me see how many rounds there have been on Velcro Bermuda greens. Yeah, see, there's not a lot of rounds here on slow Bermuda greens, at least back to the beginning of 2022. Let's see if I add the average. Let's see what that does. There's a few rounds in here. Not a lot of players have rounds on it, but there's a few. I tell you what, let's go back to the beginning of last year's season, all the way back to the Fortinet, and see how many rounds we can get. That looks to be a bit more of a stable sample. You still have players that have, 0 to very few rounds, but at least we are up into the teens for some of the players. So this will include last year's Bermuda Championship, but it is what it is, just to get enough data to give us an idea as we move forward in the week. Since the beginning of the PGA Tour last season, September of 2021, your best performers on slow and average Bermuda greens have been Martin Traynor, Denny McCarthy, Aaron Baddeley, Richie Wierenski, Sung Kang, Jonathan Bird, Harry Hall, Adam Long, Adam Schenk, and Robert Streb. And Chesson Hadley. So Streb and Hadley tied for 10th. Okay, again, not a lot of surprise here. Like Adam Long, Adam Schenk have been popping this early in the fall portion of the season. They're generally pretty good on Bermuda. Robert Streb is very good at the RSM. He has won that tournament a couple of times. Again, very slow Bermuda greens. Generally puts those very well. Denny McCarthy, one of the best putters in the world, etc., etc. We're going to remove that. Let's take a look at some short course metrics. See how players have done there. And I'm going to hopefully the beginning of 2022 will be enough for these short courses. Yeah, plenty. A little worried there at the beginning, but since the beginning of 2022, your top performers on short courses: Seamus Power, Denny McCarthy, Ryan Armour, Eric Van Rooyen, Ben Griffin, Nick Taylor, Sean O'Haire, Sam Ryder, Patrick Rogers, and Vaughn Taylor. And again, just a reminder, a short course is defined as less than 7,200 yards per Fantasy National. And then we've talked about it already. We're definitely going to want to be looking at some wind metrics, as there looks to be a system coming through this weekend. Weather generally plays a factor at the Bermuda Championship. So, again, since the beginning of 2022, your top players in moderate and windy conditions have been Scott Piercy, Brandon Wu, Cameron Percy, Alex Smalley, Adam Long, Thomas Detry, Patrick Rogers, Ryan Armour, Justin Lauer, and Kevin Yu, Chanon Yu. Oh, Jesus, there's a couple more tied for 10. Sorry, Ben Griffin and Nate Lashley. All of them in the top 10. A little bit of overlap here. Adam Long in the slow and average Bermuda greens, and now in windy conditions. Rogers was here for short courses. Now he's here for windy. Seems like a pretty good fit for the Bermuda Championship. Ben Griffin was up here, I think, in putting. Let's see. Seamus Power was number 1 in strokes gained total short courses. He's lurking just outside the top 10 in windy conditions. Okay, there's Denny McCarthy. All right, so a little bit of overlap already. Let's go and scrutinize a little bit more here in terms of, let's take a look at some strokes gained approach. Definitely going to dial this in to the John Deere or July 1st. So since July 1st, your top strokes gained approach players, no filters, just straight strokes gained approach. Those players have been Mark Hubbard, Ben Griffin, Callum Tarrant, saying you'll know, Jonathan Bird, Adam Shank, Chesson Hadley, Camilo Villegas, Russell Knox, and Aaron Baddeley. All right. I believe that's going to do it for the strokes gained page view. We mentioned it at the beginning of the essentially the Fantasy National portion when I brought you to Microsoft Excel to show you the proximities. Let's take a quick look, and I mean a very, very quick look at the proximities here and some of the players that we might want to begin our research with through the week. So I'm going to go ahead and sort on the 100 to 125, but you're going to want to take a look at all three of these for sure. 75 to 100, 100 to 125, and the 125 to 150. All three will play a factor, but I'm going to go ahead and sort on the 100 to 125. So since July 1st, your top 100 to 125 or wedge proximity players in that time frame have been Russell Knox, saying you'll know, Robert Garrigus, J.J. Henry, Camilo Villegas, Ben Griffin, David Lingmerth, Sam Ryder, Austin Cook, and Adam Long. I skipped Davis Thompson. He has withdrawn already. So has Vince Whaley and Anders Albertson. So Davis Thompson has withdrawn, as well as the other two I just mentioned, Anders Albertson and Vince Whaley. There's a look at some of the players that are key at the 100-125 proximity. Russell Knox, pretty darn elite at two of the three and good at the other. Saying you'll know, elite at two of the three, but terrible at a third. Let's go across here. So Camilo Villegas is very good to elite in all three. Ben Griffin, very good in all three. Ben Martin, very good in all three. So you have a lot of players here that are very, very good in two of the three, and then perhaps slacking in one. I think somebody like saying you'll know. There was one that just escaped me. He's withdrawn, stupid. David Lingmerth, very poor from 75 to 100, but elite 100 to 125 and good from 125 to 150. Adam Long, very good in two. So these are the kind of players that you're going to want to start your week with these short wedge proximities. I think that's going to do it for the majority of the research in Fantasy National. Last thing I'm going to do, let's go ahead and take a look at this tournament history tab here in Fantasy National. Your defending champion is not here. Lucas Herbert is not in the field this week. But your top strokes gained total player since the Bermuda began in 2020, or technically in the fall of 2019, but the 2020 season, has been Brian Gay. He won in 2021. He has no finish worse than tied for 12th. You have Russell Knox, who has played this event extremely well. David Hearn, Kramer Hickok, Denny McCarthy, all of these players have played this event extremely well. Makes a lot of sense. Denny McCarthy, the short game, the putting, the wedges. Kramer Hickok, kind of the same. At least when you look at proximity. The around the green is hit and miss. He's generally not a good putter, clearly, but he finds fairways. So that could be another thing we might want to look at. We'll take a look at that in Microsoft Excel here in a little bit. But there are some of your players that have played this event extremely well. Brian Gay, Russell Knox. Let's move on down a little bit. Like Hank Lebioda is 2 for 3, 2 very high finishes, but a miscut last year. You got Ryan Armour, 2 top 10s, and then a clunker. Let's see. Players that have played it more than once. Michael Gligic again. Oh, goodness gracious. There we go. Michael Gligic's going to be up in the forefront of my rankings again. Ugh. You got, let's see, Trahan is okay. Patrick Rogers, we talked about him. He was top 10 in strokes gained on short courses, top 10 in strokes gained, moderate and windy conditions. He top 5 last year. He has a clunker of a made cut and then missed the cut, so he's progressively gotten better. Fabian Gomez, a top 10 and then 2 missed cuts. So there's a look at some of the players that have played this event well. And then the other end of the spectrum, Ricky Barnes, 2 for 3 in making the cut, but terrible in terms of strokes gained total. Tommy Gainey, 0 for 3. Bo Van Pelt, 0 for 2. Arjun Altwal, 1 for 3. JJ Henry, 0 for 2. Michael Kim, 0 for 2. Brian Stewart, 1 for 3. Johnson Wagner, 2 for 3, but 2 clunkers have made cuts. So there's a look at some of the players that have not played this event well in the 3 years that the tournament has been going. So that's going to do it now for the Fantasy National portion of the show. Let's go ahead and move on over. I will bring this to the strokes gained page view in case we want to refer to it very quickly. But let's move on over to Microsoft Excel very quickly. And I'm going to bring this up first. This is that same chart we just looked at in Fantasy National. The strokes gained total broken out by their various, various statistic. I am going to first, I'll let you get a look here of all the players that have played the tournament, even though those who have only played it one time, very quickly, and you can pause the video there. But I am going to filter out the players that have only played it once. Not a lot of guys have played this tournament 2 or 3 times, but for those that have, let's get a feel for what they've been good at. You see Brian Gay, and we start with driving distance. Again, reminder, there is no shot length data, so we don't have strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach, around the green, putting, etc. No proximity numbers either. That is going to be pretty difficult in that regard. I have a lot of confidence that it's going to be the 100 to 125 or these shorter wedges, but with no proximity numbers, it is an educated guess. So, Brian Gay, clearly the one that has played this tournament the best. Russell Knox has played it well too. Distance is not mandatory here. Clearly, this is a very short course. You do not have to have distance to succeed. Now, Lucas Herbert did have distance, but he made it up in a lot of putting and a lot of around the green type metrics last year. Distance is not necessary. Fairways is something, absolutely. Take away Peter Malnati and his inability to find fairways. The majority of the players that have performed the best here at Port Royal, that have played it more than once, are generally very good in finding the fairways, or at least finding the fairways here. You see Russell Knox, Ryan Armour. You've got a big number down here from Henrik Norlander. Generally decent off the tee anyway. So there's something going on here that is highlighting or bringing him down, I should say, since he is finding fairways at such a high rate. But you can see just the number here. You've really only got one player, Peter Malnati, that's been poor at fairways. Michael Gligic a little bit further down, poor at finding fairways, but most of these guys have been finding fairways here. So that might be something we want to look at starting tomorrow. Good drives, kind of in line with fairways. Greens, Russell Knox has hit seemingly every green in regulation he's played here. Kramer Hickok has done very well there. Denny McCarthy has done very well there. So instead of fairways, maybe, look here, look at greens. You got to come all the way down to Ben Crane, who's played this event well. To be fair to him, 43rd place finish average in 2 events. But the top, the top 14 players that have played it multiple years are all positive in terms of greens and regulation gained. Seems like a strong indicator of success. Seems like a strong indicator of success. So greens is definitely going to be something we want to look at as well. Let's move on over to birdies and bogeys, eagles as well. Look here, there's a few eagles. And we saw that in the par 5s. These par 5s are extremely short. So eagles do happen. And the guys that have played this event well, they tend to be getting some eagles. Birdies versus bogeys. Let's go down to Ben Crane. Let's just do the top 15 of the guys that have played this event more than once. So in the birdies gained, you have an average of a 2.0. In the bogeys avoided, you have an average of a 1.8. Fairly balanced, but there's a whole lot higher of a propensity of green here in the birdies gained opposed to the bogeys avoided. So at least in terms of numbers, it looks to be birdies gained that's more important. But we'll see that here in a little bit when we go to the comparison course. And then finally, par 3s, 4s, and 5s. Let's see, par 3s. Decent amount of little success here. Again, down to Ben Crane, it's a 0.5. Okay, you have a couple of very bad numbers that's bringing that down. Gligic, Ben Crane. But overall, not too bad. Let's see, the longer par 3s. Not necessarily the most important. So maybe it's just strokes gained par 3. Interesting. Par 4s. Look at the green here. And we saw that from the winners. Brian Gay. 2019 winner. I don't remember who that is. I'm actually going to have to go cheat. Tournament history. Not here. Okay. So if you know who that is off the top of your head, jump in chat. Would appreciate that. But the 2020 winner is not here. So Brian Gay is the only past champion that is here in the field this week. But you can see his par 4 performance, especially in the 350 to 400s. Let's just kind of take a look here. Again, Ben Crane, let's see, all of these are positive. Yeah, even Doug Gim at 16th. So the average of your top 15 performers that have played here multiple years, that's an average of a 2.3. That's pretty darn strong. This is a 1.7, so still fairly strong. So these very short par 4s are going to be a big focus this week. In fact, Ben Taylor is the only player negative, and everybody else, I mean, the next lowest is a 1.5? There's a lot of emphasis here on these par 4s at Port Royal. So we're going to do a lot of emphasis on the par 4s. And then finally the par 5s. Decent here. What was the par 3s? Something like 0 point something. Let's go down to Ben Crane. This is a 1.0. The par 3s were a 0.5. So yeah, that makes sense from the graph that the players that finished in the top 5 kind of shot ahead a little bit in the strokes gained par 5 category. So that makes a little bit of sense here. You can see Michael Gligic played them well. Seamus Power, Denny McCarthy, Brian Gay. So yeah, there's a look at the comparison between the players and where their strokes gained have come here at Port Royal. We'll finish off with the comparison course metrics here. Again, this course has only been going for 3 seasons, so it doesn't have the stability that, say, like a RSM does at a Shriners, a Sanderson Farms, but it's always good to check and see what we have going on here. Again, no shot link data, so we can't compare that. Driving distance looks to be about 44% more important than the average full field course. I think that's a bit misleading. A lot of this is coming from last year and Lucas Herbert. Now, Brian Gay, your winner in 2021, didn't need distance. The 2020 winner didn't need distance. I don't know how much distance is going to really play a factor, to be honest with you. This is gathering the finishers that have all finished in the top 30, not just winners or top 5s or 10s. So do keep that in mind. But I don't know how confident I am in this number, but these three make a whole lot of sense. And in fact, I thought greens would have been a whole lot higher based on what we just saw from the players that had performed well here at Port Royal. But fairways, very important. Good drives gained, very important. Greens still more important than the average full field course. Look at this. Eagles, 40%. Might be something we want to look at. Birdies, bogeys. Looking here, it looks like more like bogeys. So this is something we'll definitely need to look in the data dive tomorrow. Go back some previous leaderboards, see what's going on, causing some of these numbers here, especially this number. That's a big number. Big number. Par threes, 14.5% more important. Okay. This is clearly an outlier. Anytime you see a number that's this astronomically high, that's just an outlier. Let's see if we can't identify it. Bermuda. Yeah. I mean, you have par threes that 2 of the par threes on the scorecard measure to that length. So they are producing big numbers. But let's see, 0.65 and a 0.4 to a 1.43. So like these were balanced last year. Now in 2021 when Brian Gay won, that was a leading factor, and in 2020 it was a leading factor. You can see 1.13 of a total of 1.83. That's a pretty significant portion of the strokes gained par 3 total. So it'll be interesting to see when we dig into the prior leaderboards last year. Maybe last year was an outlier, perhaps. Very interesting. Par 4s, again, 11% more important. I would have figured it would have been a little bit more, but 11% more important. Something's getting cut off there. Again, probably a slight bit of an outlier, but that's a huge number there. That is a huge number. 167.8% more important. But you look here, like 2.5, 2.4. These are a lot of what make up Port Royal, these short par 4s. It's definitely not the one that falls into that's for sure. So, I think a lot of emphasis is going to be put into these short par 4s this week. And then par 5s, we'll wrap it up. 500 to 550, there's 2 that measure in this range on the scorecard, and 1 from here, and it doesn't look to be very important. Surprising to see that par 5s are a little bit muted. 2.4%. Actually, does it surprise me? No, not really, because there's only 3 par 5s. The course generally plays fairly difficult, and we saw graphically that they kind of matched in the strokes gained par 3s. So I'm a little surprised it might be negative, but I didn't think that number was going to be big. So any par 5 focus we're going to have is definitely in the 500 to 550 this week. Absolutely. And then you can see no proximity data and putting data because there's no shot link. That's going to do it for the show tonight for the initial research. A reminder, I will be on Twitch tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Going to do my prep for tomorrow night's show in the data dive. Going to do a lot of research on the prior winners of the Bermuda Championship. See if we can't nail down a pattern. I've done actually a little bit of research already this weekend, and there's a couple of players that I am very anxious to see what their prices are when odds come out tomorrow. At the right number, I'm going to fire off a couple right off the bat. I'm pretty high on a couple players, so I hope you consider joining me tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. over on Twitch. I'm going to do a lot of that research. But James, thanks for jumping in chat on Twitch. I'm very happy to hear that you won the big contest, the showdown contest on Friday. That's amazing. I'm thrilled to hear that I was able to help you in any way, shape, or form. Kind of wish I would have gotten into it, but again, that is all the showdown content is over on Twitch. So if you want to get in on that, it's easy enough for me to say that I did well and all that, but the receipts, the video is there over on Twitch, and that lineup was very, very good on the Friday PM portion of the slate. So congratulations again, James, and thanks for jumping in chat and supporting the channel like you always do. And thanks to everyone else out there who watches and supports the channel, listens, comments, subscribes, likes the videos. I always appreciate it. I love what I do. I wouldn't be able to do it without you. And I always hope that I am able to provide you with some insight, some analysis, so that you can win your outright wagers and your DFS contests. So please let me know via social media, via the Discord server, however you want to get a hold of me. I would love to shout you out at the beginning of shows or during shows like I have James tonight, when my viewers do well. So for all of the wagers that you had made this past week for the CJ Cup, for all of the DFS contests that you entered this past week at the CJ Cup, until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.